Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Personnel Board meeting for June 19th, 2018. We'll start by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. At this time, we do not have copies of the minutes from our last meeting, so I would like to postpone that till our next meeting.
I make a motion, we postpone it.
Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Morning.
Morning.
Morning. I'd like to welcome Carol Savad, who is our new personnel clerk. She served as personnel clerk quite a while ago, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Do you know everybody on the board?
Not everyone.
Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Mary Beth Marziotti.
Peter Fox
I'm sorry, Lorna Wade.
Tim Dunn?
and Rose Smoka is also a member, and Joan Gardecki is an alternate member, and Joan was not able to attend. She has a graduation to attend to,
Oh, okay.
so she's traveling.
Good.
First on the agenda is the reappointment for FAA. As interim personnel clerk, I am requesting that the FAA reappoint both Lorna Wade and Mary Beth Maserati to the personnel board for another 3-year term. Their participation on the board and service to the town of Dudley has been invaluable during their previous terms. They are willing to serve for another term and look forward to I look forward to their continued service and input to the personnel board. Any discussion on that?
Peter, Personnel Board, FAA will be meeting on July 9th.
July
So this
9th.
is on their agenda for July 9th.
I think that I was originally appointed by the moderator.
I was.
But I was by the FAA.
Okay,
So-
Carol, would you look into that? Sure. You could see Aura.
I don't know if you have to be reappointed by the same body that you
But I
started
was
with.
by the FAA. Does it need to be a motion on that? Excuse me. I don't think so.
I don't think so, but somebody could make a motion to accept this request as written.
I'll make that motion to accept as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion
Aye.
carries. Item number 2, personnel sick time buyback. I don't know if all of you have had a chance to read it or not. Greg, do you have any comments on this?
No, what it does is it just codifies or establishes that the vote of the October 2016 town meeting, which amended the employee handbook, also changed the town's personnel bylaw, and the language is here. There's no changes in the language. It's just that they're need to be done in both places, and the town clerk's opinion is the vote was sufficient to amend the bylaw. Good news is, don't need to take any action on it.
Okay, so this is for information only? Do we need to,
But as I'm reading it, wasn't this approved at the October 2016 meeting?
There's no action that's needed.
no action?
It's just informational. What it's saying to you is the vote of town meeting amended the employee handbook. So we have the employee handbook and we have the personnel bylaw. In a perfect world, the vote of town meeting would have amended the bylaw and the employee handbook. Town clerk is saying the vote is sufficient to amend both.
Okay.
Okay,
So there's no action.
So this is a point of information.
Point of information and the new language is on the bottom,
All right.
shown in bold.
And so that those changes will be made to both documents? All right.
Correct.
Carol, if you would be kind enough to check to make sure the handbook reflects what this states. Thank you. Item number 3, Water and Sewer Administrative Assistant Job Description revised. I have not had a complete chance to read this. Any comments?
don't-
or-
This is the original, this is the revised. The second document is the revisions, I believe. No, this is, I'm sorry, I take that back, this is totally different, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't see two versions of this, or, you know,
I did read
anything
this over.
redacted
This
or
is the new
changed.
one, right?
Yes,
Greg?
this is their,
This is a new job description.
Correct.
So are we to assume that the boldface type are the changes?
Would you like me to get copies of the old? I can go back in the computer and get that for you if you'd like that now. You could probably go on to the superintendent for the highway department while I do that, if you'd like.
Well, it's, I mean, if
I'm
the
not
bold
sure.
ones are the updates, then we wouldn't, I wouldn't need that, but if you're not sure, then maybe.
Greg, does this have to be approved by the water commissioners, water and sewer commissioners?
Yeah, it would need to, similar to the process we followed, but just kind of glancing through the changes, they seem to be reasonable to me.
Okay. Somebody,
I'll make a motion, we accept this as written.
do I have a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous.
Right, now this is the
one's a hung.
next one.
Okay. Item number 4, Highway Superintendent Job Description Revised.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow me just to speak on this issue.
Yes.
So we have presently job opening in anticipation of Mr. Guyon leaving his position in October. So the selectmen and I went through the job description, and the board approved the version that you see here. The changes are shown and underlined, so that's the additional language. There were a couple of notable changes. Attendance at selectmen's meeting, we want to make sure that that person is there. Researching and assisting in the preparation of grant proposals. The education degree requirements were increased. There was no requirement in the past for a college degree, and at this point, the board has decided that they wish to have the job have at least an associate's degree with a preference for bachelor's degree or equivalent. The previous job description provided that the individual had a commercial driver's license. We're hiring a manager, not a snowplow or equipment operator. So we revised that the person have a valid Class D driver's license. Additional language was added concerning knowledge of human resources, best practices, and experience with negotiations of collective bargaining agreements. The town administrator typically wants to have the highway superintendent present in negotiations, and the person is also responsible as step one in the grievance process for resolving labor issues. And then lastly, the board added that they wish to have the person be located, have their residence within 15 miles of the town of Dudley, unless they decide that they wish to waive that requirement.
Okay,
And
thank
these
you.
Just for clarification, did you say that these changes were made by the Board of Selectmen? Okay.
Yes, yes. And they've already voted the changes.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the updated job description for the highway superintendent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll just like to add another comment. Greg, and correct me if I'm wrong, the selectmen are in the process of deciding and conducting interviews when they receive applications. There is a possibility that personnel might be included in that screening committee with the selectmen and the administrator, but I don't think that's been 100% formalized yet.
No, but I think, given the fact that applications are due on July 1st, it would be wise to have a designee of this committee to serve on the screening committee, and that would be my suggestion.
Okay? I would volunteer to do that.
I'll volunteer too if you need me.
I would only have one question about this, and you can mention my concern to the Board of Selectmen. I do see the benefit of an associate's degree or a bachelor's or equivalent I would have liked to have seen or 10 years of road construction experience, including 5 years, because I think sometimes those years of experience are invaluable, and you are eliminating some very qualified individuals who might be served well for that position, especially if they've had experience with negotiations and that sort of thing. So though I see that as something that you might be working towards, I would hate to think that you're also eliminating a pool of individuals who by experience have the ability to do that position. That's the only comment I would have on that.
And I know the selectmen did discuss this issue at their meeting. They did have a pretty lengthy discussion relative to the education experiences, and it was the position of the board that they wanted to have someone with a college degree, and they realized there may be instances where someone who doesn't have a degree might not be able to apply, but the feeling is based upon the compensation rate that they've identified for the position, which is between $73,000 and $88,000, they wish to have someone with a
All right,
degree.
so that explains something to me.
Yes.
I mean, if the
Yes.
compensation rate is where they feel that
Yes.
should be. All right, thank you so much for that information.
It's, in my opinion, also very important that the individual have the education to not only be like a hands-on laborer, but also have the experience of negotiating budgets, negotiating contracts, and
I think that's essential.
the budget process is extremely important, and I think the selectmen and the administrator have taken that very seriously into account with this job description.
If I could add. The only thing maybe I missed it, and I'm looking again to see it. I didn't see anywhere where it says that they should be required to have the initial training certified by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Because a lot of these things that he has to do, he has to be trained and certified, even for reimbursements on some of the roads,
Sure.
right?
So we put in that, if you look at the first page, one of the essential duties and responsibilities is that the person is responsible for reviewing, preparing, and submitting documentation related to state Chapter 90 approval and reimbursement. The person needs to have an understanding of how that process works. There's not a formal requirement that they have a certificate or a document indicating that they've reached a certain level. They just need to have an understanding of what that is.
So if,
And that's here.
they're appointed, they can take the courses after they're appointed then.
Absolutely. Although, I think based
fair.
upon the rate that we've identified for the position, we will hopefully have a candidate who's got experience in being able to do that.
Okay?
Yep,
Mary
that's
Beth,
very
any
good.
comments?
I'm all set.
Okay, so the motion carried, the job description is accepted.
Thank you. And again, the applications are due in on July 1st. They'll be distributed out to the screening committee. We'll review and interview candidates and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for finalists. I'd expect typically somewhere between 3 and 5 names to be submitted to the selectmen. We want to have this person on board and ready to go in October when Mr. Guyon will be retiring.
Okay, sounds good. And you and the Board of Selectmen are requesting somebody from personnel?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I think that's important.
okay. And I had volunteered to do that. Is that all right with the rest of the committee?
Absolutely.
Okay. Item number 5, applications for per diem laborer. We have 4. We have the duties and, a list of duties and responsibilities, that job description, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 applications that need to be evaluated for acceptance on this permission. Would somebody like to, or several, like to volunteer to conduct the interviews?
When are the interviews going to be done?
They have to be set up. We haven't done that yet.
I'll be on the board.
If it is after next Tuesday, then I would also do that.
Okay? And Jim?
Yes.
I'll, if for some reason somebody can't do it, then I'll do that.
Okay. Then why don't we'll have Jim, Lorna, and myself, and Mr. Guyan should be there?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely should be there. So if Carol, if you would get a hold of Mr. Guyan and set up job interviews for after Tuesday.
That would, yeah, if that can work for people.
And mornings is best for everybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
anytime is good for me, but.
Okay, and Carol, if you would allow like 20 minutes per interview and try to see if you can get all 4 people in one day and get that taken care of and get back to us with a date. Any further questions on that? So, Carol, you'll get back to us?
Yes.
Thank you. Actually got some pretty good,
Yes.
applications here.
Sure do.
Okay, item number 5, salary wage chart.
That's not here.
It's not here.
There isn't one.
Carol, we don't have that in our package?
I don't have the updated one.
Okay. Want to postpone that to next meeting?
Yeah, why don't we table it to next meeting?
I make a motion, we table that for the next meeting then.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All in favor of tabling it to our next meeting?
Aye.
Aye. One of the reasons I would agree to table that is because Joan Gardecki had some information on that, and she has some suggestions, and I would certainly like to include her.
Absolutely.
I need to compile that.
Yes, Greg?
Mr. Chairman, somewhat related to that is at the last meeting, the board had talked about bringing in a consultant to review the town's pay and classification plan. I did obtain a report from the town of Charlton, which is, I think what we're looking for, but I wanted to circulate it because it is quite detailed. And in the case of that report, they looked at 50 positions and they determined what the duties and responsibilities were with those positions. Then did a survey of what they considered to be comparable communities and established a salary range based upon those communities that they think was fair. So this is a report from 2015. It's not done for free. It's not something that we can do in-house. So if the committee decides that they wish to do something like this, you may want to have a discussion at your next meeting about whether you want to do that, and then we line it up for funding at the fall town meeting.
So we would discuss whether we thought this was of value, and then it would go before the town meeting in the fall
Correct.
for approval for funding for an agency and a independent agency to come in
Yeah.
and do that. Okay.
Yeah, and,
All right.
and this is pretty standard in terms of what I've seen in other towns, although it's just one example. They're all pretty similar in terms of how they look. They all do an analysis of the job positions and then look at what the salaries are in different communities. The question is, they don't typically involve union positions because that's subject to collective bargaining. But every other position that's within the wage schedule or management position could be included in this, and that's what the Charlton report did, is it looked at staff employees and it looked at managers and established a salary range based upon that.
And
Maybe this could be scanned to all of us, so we could look at it
Yeah,
in
that'd
more
be a good idea.
detail.
I can, I actually have a saved copy of it, so
Okay.
I'll forward it to Carol and she can send it on to the board.
and
You'll make copies for all of us?
you would have guidance also as to independent agencies who could come
Yeah,
in?
well, I was just.
Yeah, so the process would be, if you decide you want to do it, then what I would do is I'll contact people that I know and get a price range. We would have to do what's called a request for proposals. We put it out to bid, and we establish what the prices are, and I can do that. If that's what you want to do, I can do it. That's what my job is.
I
Okay.
had just asked for her to scan it and email to us so you could look at it online, but, I mean, we could pass this one around too if you.
And I actually have,
prefer.
I have a scanned copy, so I can be happy to give you
Yeah.
a copy of that.
Okay.
I'd rather just read it on the computer.
Greg, you've looked at this in depth?
I have, yeah.
Okay, and it's pretty standard?
It's standard. I think a report like that is what communities are you comparing us to? And I think something like that, if you look at the list that's there, I don't necessarily agree the communities that are in that report are comparable to that community. I'd spend a lot of time identifying what the comparables are, and I'd want us to identify what communities we want to be compared to versus the consultant.
Yeah, but we could use this to our advantage as a guideline.
I think it's something that, I can't tell you when. Joan might be able to tell you the last time it's done. I've been here for 4 years. There hasn't been one done in 4 years. I think it's a good idea to periodically go out and have a report like that done. That'll
Okay.
identify ranges for positions, and I think that's a fair thing to do.
So you would suggest that it be fine-tuned to other towns that are comparable to this town?
Yeah, I have a good idea of what those towns are.
Okay.
Because when we do budgeting and finance, I have a list of comparisons that I think are fair and accurate. A lot of it is dependent upon geography, but some of it's based upon statistics and data, community wealth, value of property and such. And you take all of those things, and we probably have 10 or 12 communities that I think are favorable to us.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's important that we look at this, because this is a question that's been going on for quite a few years now about employees feeling that they're not being compensated fairly to today's market. So I think it's important that we take a look at this. And when we do, let's do it right. And make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's to make sure we're thorough with what we recommend. And hopefully we'll have a recommendation at a reasonable length of time, and then it could go to the fall town meeting. Okay, any board member comments or input, anything they would like to bring up?
Peter, I just have one thing when you're done.
Jim?
I thought I saw something come through in an email about a discussion of if this is the best time and day for the personnel meeting. I don't know where that,
Oh, there was an
Came from-
email.
I didn't get that email.
Carol, was that, is this
I
a
think you had
conflict
mentioned it. No,
for you?
not for me. I think you had wanted to try to accommodate my hours on Thursday, to have it on a Thursday, but I don't have a problem coming here on a Tuesday because I work for conservation at 11:30 anyway. So it
Okay.
wouldn't be
All right,
an issue.
okay.
Okay.
Then I would like to leave it the same, because I think everybody's pretty much available.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we start shuffling the deck again, then we're gonna have some people that can make it and some people that can't make it. And I thank you for offering to do that.
You're welcome.
Greg?
So, there's a new law that's been passed. It becomes effective July 1st. It's called the Pay Equity Act. And I'll scan a copy of the lawyer's opinion, but one of the things that's most notable in here is you review applicants for job positions. It states that you can't screen employees based upon their salary history. So asking job employees about salary history is not permissible. However, once an employment offer is made to a person, then you can discuss salary and what their past history was. So that's one of the things just to kind of be aware of, since you're involved in interviewing people, is be careful about discussion of salary history until you make an offer. Another thing that's in here is it talks about employers needing to do an evaluation of their pay practices. And it indicates that we could do a self-evaluation, or we could have an outside expert do an evaluation. And I'm not asking to take any action on it today, but this is just a new law that's come into effect. I feel it's relevant, and I feel that you should know about it.
So clarification, that does not mean that you do not post what the salary range might be if we did that. It's not legal to ask the applicant what their salary was in their previous job. Is
That's
that?
it. That's
that-
it.
Yeah.
Can I-
I don't believe we've ever done that.
No,
No.
I don't ever recall asking somebody, how much do you make?
I've applied for jobs in my career where, as part of the application process, the employer will require you to submit a documentation of your salary history. And something like that is prohibited under the new act.
Okay.
Can I,
Sometimes I can see how the information might be, if somebody's taking a pay cut to take a job, then you might wonder how long they're gonna stay. Are they gonna be still looking for another job and be here for 2 months until they find their job that they get the salary that they want?
but you did say that at some point in the discussion, that can be, once a job
After-
offer is made to them.
After an employment offer is made, then you have a right to ask for that.
Can I just ask another, I should have asked this when you said whether there were any questions from the
No
members of the
problem.
board.
Go ahead.
Greg, when we have staff that leaves a position in the town, do you have an exit interview with them
No.
as to their experience? There is no exit interview? Okay.
No, but I do expect, your comment does motivate me to say that I was kind of doing in my head an accounting of people that I know will be leaving here for retirement, and I count 5 positions in the next year. So it's a pretty substantial turnover, and kind of thinking out longer term, I expect that there's probably another 5 that are gonna go between 1 and 2 years. So if you wish to establish exit interviews, we could maybe have that on the agenda and discuss whether we want to.
Well, my question would be then, is it appropriate for this board to do those exit interviews and take information as to, their experiences within the building and what was positive and maybe some constructive and why they would be leaving? Would that be within the purview of this board?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I think we have conducted exit interviews on some people in the past.
Some, but there's no, Peter, what I'm saying is there's no consistent policy.
Okay,
We don't have a policy in
Right.
place that says, here's the form and this is what's required of every department.
So maybe we wish to discuss that
okay.
and whether it's an effective practice.
Yeah. Carol, would you put that on next month's agenda?
Yes. I just one further comment about the Pay Equity Act. So it's, the meat of the act is not to do with, discussion of salaries, what I already talked to you about. It talks about comparable work requires equal pay, so that, you cannot discriminate, pay on the basis of gender, unless the employees work at they do different work. So, if someone does comparable work, then they should be paid the same rate of pay regardless of what their gender is. And we already do that, so, it's kind of a repetition. We may need to prove that, but we're already doing that, and we're already in compliance.
Okay, I 100% support that.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether it's a male or a female or whatever the job pays, that person gets what the job pays.
I think we're there.
Yes. And I think it's a shame that in some cases that jobs have not paid the same for the exact same work. Okay. Our next meeting will be the 3rd Tuesday of July,
17th?
which would be the 17th. If for some reason you cannot make it, I would appreciate notification.
I do already know that I'm away that week.
Okay. And Carol, when you do the minutes, include them, plus our last month's minutes, include them, because we didn't vote on them today.
And I will not be at that meeting, just so you know.
Okay.
Can I
But
just
I'll submit it.
also ask, this report is going to be sent to us via email?
Yes.
Is that correct? All right, thank you.
But if someone wishes to have a hard copy, there it is.
No, that's
I'd
fine.
like to look at the hard copy, rather than squinting for
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, maybe.
50 pages.
Just print it out.
You want some copies?
I think that makes sense,
Makes sense to me, because I have,
because then I can highlight things I have
Yeah.
questions on. Yes, a hard
Yeah.
copy would be good.
make each of us a copy of that, I'd
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, but if we wait for the hard copy, and it's gonna be on the agenda next month, we're not gonna have time to study it.
Well, if it's ready, she can send an email and say, come on,
Okay.
stop by and pick it
Yeah.
up.
Um, if you want to stick around for 5 minutes, doesn't take long.
No, I'll stick
We'll
around for
give
5
you,
minutes.
we'll give you one hot off the presses if you hang out for 5 minutes.
I will.
And before we adjourn, could I also ask of Carol, if you could let us know when these packets are available, if they're available before the meeting, and we would have the chance to come in and look at them. I think it then circumvents the situation where we have something lengthy, such as a change in job descriptions, and we have a chance to look at it beforehand, and we're not trying to catch up. So if you could let us know, and we could come in and look in our folders, maybe if you had a folder for us at the desk,
Sure.
that we could check those things in, I would be more than happy to come in and look at that material before the meeting. And I appreciate you doing that for us.
I think that's important, because I know when I was a selectman, I always came in 3-4 days ahead of time, as soon as Michelle had the packets all set, so I would pre-read it before the meeting, so I was at least familiar and up to date with what the discussions would be. And you're absolutely right. It saves a lot of time, and it saves, we'll postpone it for the next meeting. And, you know, we don't meet every week. We meet once a month, so that delays a lot of things. And I would like to speed the process up if we can.
And I also understand extenuating circumstances. Somebody may come in within that 48 hours just before with something for the agenda and material, which, that's understandable, but then that's only one piece of information. So,
And I can either email that or text you, you know, that you may have already picked up your packets, but this came up that wants,
perfect, because then that will give us a chance to maybe come in 10 minutes earlier before the meeting and look at the information. So that would be great. Thank you.
I want to welcome you aboard,
thank you.
and if there's any way I can help you, Tuesdays mornings, I'm free,
Okay,
right? Other than that, you have to come up to Boy Scout camp and find me, so.
okay. Thanks, Jim. Double-sided, okay?
Sure. Yeah, double-sided is fine. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, meeting adjourned.